This is a great practice to do if you want to improve and encourage the positive habits that you do. So what you want to do is, after your day, come back home, sit at your desk with a piece of paper and just write down anything good that you did today. You know, write down those times where you lived up, even for a second, that you lived up to being the person that you want to be. No matter how small it is, just write it down. This is a really key habit because I think in this world that, you know, it's very easy to hyper focus on the negatives, and we're kind of encouraged to do this. You know, especially if you're really striving to improve yourself, it's very easy to constantly look to improve things more. You know, and as such, you're always focusing on your shortcomings. You know, but I actually find that without the right mentality and without the right self-image, this has limited use to us. You know, it's not actually super helpful to be constantly thinking about how you could do things better. And it's much better to focus on what you've done already that you've done well. You know, this is how the brain learns. This is food for the brain. So if there are areas you want to improve in your life, writing down the times when you've achieved those things. You know, let's say you want to eat healthier. You know, you might have a busy day at work. You know, you might have fucked something up. You might have forgot something at work that your boss needed. You forgot some reports. You know, you had a stressful day at work. You know, you woke up late. You're feeling a bit tired or whatever. But you had a healthy meal. And if you sit down at the end of the day and write down, and it might take a few seconds to recall. You might think, oh, I've had a really bad day. And it might take a second just to recall that one good moment. Oh, but I did have a healthy meal today, you know. And just sort of bask in that sort of positive moment of having done that. And the alternative is you go home after a bad day when you've had a healthy meal and you don't write it down. You don't reflect on it. You don't really recall it. You kind of forget about it after it's happened. And you kind of write off the day as generally having been negative because of all the bad things that happened. Like, who do you think is more likely to have a healthy meal the next day? The person who's reflected on it, written it down, or the person who hasn't? Now, I think it's the person who's written it down. Because you set up a reward system for yourself there. And this is the thing, is positive reflection on times you've done something well, is food for the brain. The brain needs that kind of positive momentum in order to improve itself. You know, and it's easy to just think, oh, but we need to constantly be striving for better. You know, when we get complacent if I'm just constantly focusing on the positives and not the negatives. That's true to an extent, but the trouble is you already focus on the negatives. You know, most people have especially if you want to improve your life, the likelihood is you're probably too focused on the negatives. You're too focused on things that can improve, and it's strangling you. And you've got the self-image of yourself that you're never living up to your potential. And you need a bit of that. You need a bit of that hunger to improve. But if you can write down things you actually have done well, that's enormous. That's enormous. And you need that kind of idea. You need to remind yourself constantly that you can do things that are good for you, that you set out to do, things that are difficult, but you do anyway because you want to improve your life. That's really essential. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the show Peep Show, which is like an English TV show. And there's one scene in it where this American character, who's kind of a bit of a hippie, you know, and sort of classic American sort of, you know, very positive. She's seeing on the news, and it says that there's been like a crash on the road, like a bus has driven into a car, and there's been a crash. And she says, God, why are they focusing on all the negative stuff? What about all the buses that made it safely to their destination? Now, you know, obviously it's made for comic effect. It's just a silly thing, but there is some truth in that, you know. it's just so easy to just you get one relatively small, not saying that a bus crashing is small, but in the context of your life, you can let one relatively small thing just fuck up your day, and everything else that you've done good, you just completely forget about because of one stupid thing that doesn't really matter that you forgot. It's really dangerous, and I think that can just ruin you and ruin your self-image. And if you don't have a good self-image, if you don't see yourself as someone who achieves the goals they set out to achieve, if you don't constantly remind yourself of that, then you're not going to be a success. You're not going to be a success. So I really believe that all the successful people, all the people who sort of achieve what they set out to, they have very positive self-talk. They really believe that they're a success, even if they do mess up. They don't let it get them down. And the people who do, let's be honest, like when you see someone who's like hasn't really made much of their life, by the metrics that you want, do they seem to really be proud of themselves? Probably not. Probably not. If you ask them, they'd probably say they wanted more out of their life. That they're falling short of their potential. Now they might not phrase it exactly like that. They might not think quite in terms of that. But I don't think many of them would say, "I've made a success of my life." And that's the thing. They still have. It's because they haven't crafted that sort of positive image of themselves as someone who potentially can be an enormous success. So give this a try.